Okay, today I'm going to be making some homemade bread from wheat that we're going to grind. I know a lot of people bake bread, a lot of women bake bread, and we don't see as many guys baking bread, but I'm here to dispel the mystery. We can bake as well. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take you through the process that I use. It's not a real complicated thing, it's not a mystery, and the ingredients that you need to bake bread are pretty simple. You need some wheat, and we're going to grind that into flour in just a little bit. You're going to need milk. You're going to need a little sugar, a little salt. I put butter in mine, and I put a little applesauce in it, and you're going to need some yeast as well. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to grind the wheat, and that's a little bit noisy, so we'll just show you probably the end result, and maybe while it's grinding a little bit, but you're not going to be able to hear me talk too much. So let's get the wheat ground, and let's get ready to do this. Okay, there you go. We've got some nice flour all ground up. All right, we're ready to go. I use the Bosch blender. That's the one I like, and this is brain dead simple. I have people ask me, what's your recipe? Well, I don't really have a recipe. I start out with 2.5 cups of milk. I warm that up to, I just put it in the microwave and warm it up to about 100 to 110 degrees, somewhere along in there. You don't want it much hotter than that. And that's my starting point. And this Bosch mixer will do the rest for you on determining how much flour you need to put in there to get the right consistency. So what I start out with is just adding several cups of flour. I'm going to just put the flour in here, and what I'm going to do is create what is called a sponge. Now, by creating the sponge, I find that the bread has a much better texture, a much better flavor, and for those of you that may be somewhat gluten intolerant, it may or may not be the gluten intolerance that you're actually having a problem with. It could be yeast. My wife had a gluten intolerance problem and was not able to eat bread. And so what we found was that by doing the sponge and letting it sit, I'm going to put in the milk and the yeast and the sugar and the applesauce. I'll put those in there, and I'm just going to let it stir it up for a bit, and then I'm just going to let it sit for several hours, 2, 3, 4 hours, something like that. And I'm only using about half or maybe a little more of the flour that we're going to use in this. So this is a teaspoon measure, and I usually put 3 generous teaspoons, a little bit more of the yeast in here. Okay, I keep the yeast in the freezer. That kind of keeps it from going bad or losing its potency or whatever. So let's go ahead and dump the applesauce. I just use these little packets. I just put one of those in. That seems to work good. All right, we'll just put this in. That for a moment, and then we're going to put the milk in. We're going to put that in, and I'll show you what that's going to do. So let me grab the other camera, and let's see if we can reposition this a bit and show you what this is going to look like. I did add a little bit of sugar to it just to give the yeast something to feed on other than the applesauce. So there you go. That's what it's going to look like. Okay, I am back, and it has been about 6 hours, which a little bit longer than I usually do it, but you can let it go for even longer than that and it'll be fine. You can see this has risen quite a bit over what it was earlier this morning, and it's even fallen back down a little bit, but it has really created a nice sponge. And so what I'm going to do is add all the rest of the flour and the other ingredients, and we'll get these things to rising. I do 2 rises. The first one, let it double, and then take it out of the bowl and put it back in the bread pans and let it rise again, and then bake it. Okay, let me set the camera back up and we'll get going. All right, here we go. What I'm going to add now is a little bit of salt, and I probably put couple teaspoons of salt. You don't add a little bit of salt, it can have a pretty flat taste. So salt is always a good thing. The next thing I'm going to add is the butter. I went ahead and just melted the butter, just hit it in the microwave just until it melted. You don't want to get it hot, just get it to where it'll melt, and that'll be fine. And then the last ingredient I'm going to add is the egg. I'm going to put an egg in it. I think that the egg gives it a really good texture to it, and it does really well. So I'm going to turn this on. It's going to get a little noisy, and then I'll show you when you've got enough flour in it. So there's a trick with the Bosch mixers. Whenever you've added enough flour in it, it'll pull away from the sides of the bowl and the center post, and it'll be clean as can be on those, and it'll create a really nice ball of dough. So let me get this started, and we'll see how it does. Okay, I wanted to show you what this is looking like when it's in here, and it's sticking all over the paddle, the dough hook rather, the sides and everything. But then as I continue to add more and more flour to it, you're going to see that it's going to clean up. So let me do that, since I can't do all of this with one hand on the camera and trying to dump the flour in. So let me tend to that, and I'll show you the end result. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me over the mixer, but you can see that I've added enough flour now that it is pulled away from the sides of the bowl and the center post, and it's cleaned up the bowl really nice. And so we're going to let that turn for about 6.5 to 7 minutes, and that will be the knead time on it. So we'll let it knead and do its thing. Okay, it is finished kneading, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like in the bowl. You can see it's got a nice gluten is developed. You see that elasticity in the dough, and it is just the way I want it. Okay, here we go. Let's just pull this out off of the dough hook. Twist that off, and if we're lucky, or if I'm lucky rather, this will just roll out of here. I do like the dough a little stickier than maybe some people do, but so I just tap that down a bit. Now I'm going to, so I can get oil on all sides of it. There we go. I'll just turn it over like that, and press it down in and round it off a little bit, and there we go. I'll put some saran wrap or whatever, cling wrap or whatever it is, on the top of this, and we'll start the timer, and we'll let it go for about 30 minutes, and we'll see how it does. Okay, I would say that is probably risen to double its size or maybe triple its size. So what I'm going to do is turn that out over here on just this flexible cutting board, which I find that works really good and doesn't stick to it, and then we'll even it up into 3 perfectly even loaves into those 3 pans. My wife is over here chuckling and snickering because I never get it even. It's always Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear loaves that I get. Okay, let's do that, and we'll continue on. Okay, let me just put this out because I am going to use that to put some of the dough on while I am putting it in the pans. There we go, and we'll just give it a good smack, knock it down, and then I'll just turn this out. All right, some good looking dough there. And I'm just going to work it a little bit to knock out some of the air here. And now to do 3 perfectly even loaves. What do you think? That look good to you? Okay, we'll go with that. All right, 1. Just gonna shake that, drop that one in. That over there. Okay, I'm just folding this under a little bit is what I'm doing. Okay, I think that was Baby Bear. This is probably Mama Bear there. And we'll see how this one turns out. Yeah, maybe we got 2 Mama Bears. That may say something politically. Okay, we've got the ones in there. So what I'm going to do now is we'll let this rise again. It's going to rise for probably another 20 minutes. It'll double up, and then we're going to start baking. Back in a bit. Okay, here we go. I've had the bread covered, and that's what it looks like. Let me back up and let it focus a little bit. There we go. So we got 3 pretty nice loaves, 2 of them fairly even, but I still think we came out with Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. So let me get these into the oven. I'm going to bake these for about 24 minutes and see where we are then. Back after we take it out of the oven. Okay, it's been 24 minutes in the oven, and I just took them out. I think they turned out pretty good. What do you think? And of course now I need to just let these sit just a minute in the pans, and they should loosen up, and I'll be able to get them out, or at least I am hopeful. But there we go, 1 down, 2 to go. So just leave them in there a couple of minutes after you take them out. And then I find that if I just rock the pan base back and forth, they dump right out, and they do really good. So 2 down. Let's see if I can make it 3 in a row, but they all come out good. There we go. All right. We have the 3 loaves of bread. Now, of course, you need to let these sit for about an hour to completely cool down, and then you can put them in the bags. So I'm going to let these sit for about an hour here on the counter before I slice into one. And if you believe that, you're crazy. I'm getting the knife, the butter, and the honey right now. Bon appetit. Talk to you later. Hope you enjoyed this little video on how to bake bread, or at least how I bake bread. And I would like to add one little thing. When I was adding the flour in on the second round after we'd created the sponge, I use bread flour. So I find that for some people, having all 100% whole wheat flour is a little much for them if they are not accustomed to eating it all the time. So I put just a little bit there at the very end, bread flour in here, and it seems to temper it a bit, and it gives it a whiter, lighter color to the loaf, and people are more acceptable to that, because I usually end up eating one of these, and I'll give the others away. So if you enjoyed this, thumbs up and subscribe. Talk to you later. Oh, are you still there? Oh, by the way, I did not wait the full hour. It was really good, by the way. Wish you were here.